Have you ever wondered why many older people resist the idea of moving into a nursing home, regardless of their age? At 84, I can tell you that such a decision is never made casually. For me, it is the result of a lifetime of experiences, lessons learned the hard way, and a deep understanding of what truly matters in these later years. To some, a nursing home may look like safety and structure, but to me, it feels like the slow surrender of freedom, dignity, and choice. That is why I have made up my mind. I will never go into a nursing home. In this video, I want to share the 5 powerful reasons behind that decision. These reasons are not just personal, but they reflect the unspoken truths carried quietly in the hearts of many seniors who long to keep their independence. Each reason is more than a preference. It is about protecting the very spirit of who we are. And I invite you to stay with me until the end, because the final reason is one that few talk about openly, yet it may change the way you see aging and independence forever. As the years pass, one of the changes many older adults notice is how sleep itself begins to shift. In youth, nights were often deep and restorative. We would fall into bed after a long day, close our eyes, and wake up feeling renewed. But after 60, 70, and certainly into the 80s, the pattern changes. Sleep becomes lighter, more fragmented, and less refreshing. What once felt like a nightly reset begins to feel more like a fragile pause, easily broken by the slightest sound or a restless thought. This lighter sleep quality is not just an inconvenience. It is a fundamental change that influences health, mood, memory, and quality of life in profound ways. At my age, I know the experience well. I might go to bed at 9 or 10, only to wake 2 or 3 times before morning. Sometimes it's because of aching joints, sometimes because of the urge to use the bathroom, and other times it's for no reason at all. I simply open my eyes and cannot fall back asleep. In those quiet hours, I lie still and think about the way my body no longer sinks into rest the way it once did. Many of my friends share the same story. They, too, feel that sleep, once a loyal companion, has become unpredictable. And though some dismiss it as just part of aging, the truth is that lighter sleep quality carries consequences that ripple through every part of daily life. For one, lighter sleep means the body does not reach the same stages of deep restorative rest it once did. Scientists explain that the brain cycles through different phases during the NIG. Light sleep, deep sleep, and REM. Deep sleep is when tissues repair, when hormones that support muscle and bone health are released, and when the brain clears out waste and solidifies memories. Without enough of that deep phase, the body begins to feel more fragile. Muscles ache longer, healing takes more time, and energy dwindles more quickly. Older adults who struggle with light sleep often notice that small tasks become more draining, and recovery from even minor illnesses stretches on. I once spoke with Eleanor, a neighbor in her 70s, who said she used to sleep like a stone. Now she wakes at 3 in the morning most nights and sits by the window until dawn. She described how fatigue follows her through the day like a shadow, making it difficult to enjoy activities she once loved. Even her balance feels less steady, which her doctor told her could be linked to poor sleep. She confessed that the hardest part is not the tiredness itself, but the sense that her body is slowly betraying her, denying her the restoration she once took for granted. Beyond the body, lighter sleep affects the mind. Without enough deep rest, memory and concentration begin to falter. It's not uncommon for seniors to forget appointments, misplace items, or struggle to recall names. While these slips are often blamed on aging alone, sleep plays a significant role. The brain consolidates memories at night, transferring them from short-term to long-term storage. When sleep is shallow, that process is interrupted. A friend of mine, Harold, 81, told me he began keeping notebooks in every room of his house just to keep track of simple tasks because he knew his lighter sleep was leaving him foggy. "It's like my brain never fully wakes up," he said. His words capture the subtle but relentless erosion that comes from nights without depth. Emotional health also suffers when sleep becomes shallow. I've noticed in myself that on mornings after a restless night, I am less patient, more anxious, and quicker to feel discouraged. This is not just a matter of mood. It is biology. The brain regulates emotions during sleep, and when that regulation is interrupted, stress hormones rise. For seniors already facing loneliness, health challenges, or loss, this emotional fragility can become heavy. Depression and anxiety are often worsened by chronic poor sleep, creating a cycle that is difficult to break. Worry disrupts sleep, and disrupted sleep fuels more worry. Another layer to lighter sleep quality is its effect on independence. Without deep rest, energy reserves shrink, and even simple routines like cooking, cleaning, or walking to the store can feel overwhelming. This, in turn, feeds into the fear of dependence. Seniors who cannot rely on restorative sleep may lean more heavily on others, feeling less capable of managing their own lives. I have heard people whisper that this is why some end up in nursing homes sooner than expected. Not because their bodies are completely frail, but because exhaustion strips away their ability to keep up with daily life. What makes this especially difficult is how easily society dismisses it. People joke about seniors waking up at 4 in the morning or falling asleep in the middle of the afternoon, as if it is just a quirk of age. But beneath those jokes lies a serious reality. Lighter sleep quality chips away at vitality. It erodes the foundation of health silently, one shallow night after another. And while medications exist, they often bring risks of side effects, grogginess, or dependency. The challenge is that sleep cannot be forced, it must be nurtured. I remember Margaret, a woman I met in a support group, who explained how much her life changed when her sleep shifted. At 85, she could no longer sleep more than 2 or 3 hours at a time. She said it made her feel like a stranger in her skin. Tasks she once managed easily became overwhelming, and she lost interest in hobbies she had loved for decades. When she entered a nursing home after a fall, she hoped the structured environment would help her sleep better. But the reality was worse. Hallway noises, staff check-ins, and shared spaces left her even more restless. She confided that the loss of sleep was harder on her than the broken hip that had sent her there in the first place. Her story reminded me that lighter sleep is not a small nuisance. It is a heavy weight pressing on every aspect of life. Yet, it is not all despair. Some seniors have found ways to cope, showing that while we cannot fully reverse the clock, we can adapt. For instance, James, at 82, makes it a priority to follow a calming evening routine. He avoids caffeine late in the day, keeps his bedroom cool and dark, and spends an hour reading quietly before bed. He admits his sleep is lighter than it used to be, but by respecting his body's rhythm, he manages to find more rest. He told me, "I don't fight it anymore. I work with it." His words carry wisdom for all of us. Perhaps the key is not to expect the sleep of youth, but to cultivate habits that allow the body to rest as best it can. From my perspective, the lighter sleep quality that comes with age is one of the most difficult challenges because it strikes at the root of well-being. Without restorative nights, days feel shorter, energy feels thinner, and the joys of life become harder to hold. But recognizing it for what it is, not just getting old, but a profound change in the body, can give us the chance to face it with intention. Whether it means adjusting routines, creating quieter environments, or seeking support from doctors who understand the issue, seniors deserve to treat their sleep seriously. The truth is that aging will always bring shifts in how we rest. Yet lighter sleep does not mean we must surrender to a life of constant fatigue. By acknowledging its impact, sharing our experiences, and supporting each other, we can soften its blow. For me, the fight to preserve sleep is not only about health. It is about preserving independence, memory, and dignity. Every hour of rest is a gift, and though those hours may now be lighter, they are no less essential to living fully. As I look back on the many nights I've stared at the ceiling, waiting for sleep to return, I realize that these struggles are shared by millions of older adults. We may not all speak of it, but we know the feeling of dragging through the day after a restless night. And so I speak about it now, because it is too important to ignore. Lighter sleep quality is not just a stage of aging, it is a call to protect the rhythms of life that give us strength. We cannot bring back the deep, unbroken sleep of youth, but we can guard the dignity that comes from caring for ourselves, even in the quiet hours of the night. And that, to me, is worth every effort. There is a special kind of comfort that comes from waking up in the same bedroom you have known for decades, with the morning light slipping through the same curtains you once hung with your own hands. For many older adults, a house is not just 4 walls and a roof. It is a living record of who they are and where they have been. Every corner holds a memory, every creak in the floor carries a story, and every photograph on the wall is a reminder of a life well lived. That is why, for me, the comfort of home and the memories it holds are one of the strongest reasons I could never move into a nursing home. To leave my home would feel like leaving behind not just a place, but a part of myself. I often think about the rhythm of my days here. The kitchen table where my children once sat doing homework, The armchair worn smooth by years of reading, the garden that has seen more family gatherings than I can count. These are not just objects, they are extensions of my identity. When I sit in that chair or water those flowers, I am not just passing time. I am reconnecting with my past, grounding myself in the life I have built. To imagine exchanging all of that for a sterile room with white walls and unfamiliar furniture feels almost like being asked to erase myself. The truth is that nursing homes, no matter how well run, cannot replicate decades of emotional comfort. They can provide clean beds, organized schedules, and medical support, but they cannot recreate the feeling of sitting at a table stained with the laughter of family dinners or stepping onto a porch where you once watched the seasons change with someone you loved. That kind of comfort is woven into the walls of a home, accumulated layer by layer over years of ordinary living. When you leave it, you leave behind those invisible threads that hold you steady. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Eleanor, a woman I once knew, understood this better than anyone. She was 82 and had lived in the same home since she was a young bride. She raised her children within those walls, cooked countless holiday meals in her kitchen, and watched her grandchildren play in the backyard she and her husband had once planted with apple trees. She told me that each time she walked into her kitchen, she could still smell the Sunday dinners she used to prepare, and each holiday decoration she pulled from storage connected her to the traditions of her family. She confided that if she ever had to leave her home, it would feel like leaving behind half of herself. That home, she said, wasn't just where she lived, it was who she was. Eleanor's words resonated with me because they reflect what so many of us feel but often cannot explain. Home is stability. It is the one place where the outside world cannot intrude on our sense of belonging. As we grow older, that stability becomes even more important. Change becomes harder to bear, and the noise, routines, and strangers of a nursing home can feel overwhelming compared to the familiar rhythm of life at home. The bed may be softer and the meals may be prepared, but they cannot replace the peace of sitting in a living room that holds the echoes of decades. I remember visiting a friend who had recently moved into a nursing home after a fall. She told me that while the facility was clean and the staff was kind, she felt lost in a place where nothing had history. The walls were blank, the furniture impersonal, and the routines rigid. "It doesn't feel like mine," she said quietly. "It feels like I'm just passing through." That sentence cut me deeply because it revealed the essence of what is lost when you leave home. The sense of ownership, of belonging, of being rooted. There is also a deeper psychological truth here. Home serves as an anchor for memory, especially as we age. Familiar surroundings trigger recollections that keep the mind sharp and the spirit alive. The sight of a family portrait, the feel of a quilt passed down through generations, or the smell of a garden in bloom can awaken memories that nourish the soul. Without those cues, seniors often experience a kind of disorientation, a sense of being unmoored from their own story. Nursing homes, with their generic environments, rarely provide that kind of stimulation. Instead, they can accelerate the fading of memory by stripping away the physical reminders that connect a person to their past. When I think about my own home, I realize it is not luxury that makes it precious but familiarity. The same wooden table I have eaten at for decades, though scratched and worn, feels like a treasure because of the countless meals it has hosted. The old armchair by the window, though sagging, is priceless because it has been the spot where I have read, prayed, and reflected. Even the cracks in the walls feel like part of my history, marks of years lived fully. These are things no institution, however well designed, can reproduce. There is also the comfort of routine. At home, I know where everything is, from the kettle on the stove to the blanket folded on the couch. I know the way sunlight moves across the floor in the afternoon and how the air smells after rain. These small details create a sense of peace that is invaluable, especially in later years when peace of mind is just as important as physical health. Nursing homes, by necessity, disrupt that stability. They impose new routines, new layouts, and new rules, often at a time when the ability to adapt is limited. For many seniors, this disruption can feel like a final loss of control. I have seen people shrink under the weight of such change. A friend of mine, Harold, was moved into a facility after his wife passed away. Though the staff was attentive, he told me he felt like he was living in someone else's life. He missed the simple act of waking up in his bedroom, seeing the pictures on the wall that reminded him of his wife, and sitting in his favorite chair. He confessed that without those familiar comforts, he felt unmoored, as though his identity had begun to slip away. And that is the heart of the matter. Home is identity. It holds the proof of who we are, of the lives we have built, and of the love we have shared. To be forced to leave it is to surrender a piece of that identity. Nursing homes, no matter how caring, cannot offer the same belonging. They are designed to care for bodies, but they cannot care for memories in the same way a home can. Even the simplest objects hold meaning that cannot be replaced. The teacup that belonged to your mother, the blanket you knitted during long winters, the photographs of children now grown, these are more than things. They are reminders that you have lived a full life, that your story matters, and that you still belong to the world you helped shape. To leave them behind for a room that hundreds of others have occupied before you is to lose more than comfort. It is to lose continuity with your own story. I believe that is why so many older adults resist the idea of leaving home. It is not stubbornness. It is survival. Home gives us stability, memory, and identity in a way nothing else can. Without it, we risk becoming just another resident, another number in a system. At home, we remain ourselves. As I sit in my living room, surrounded by the echoes of my life, I know this is where I belong. The comfort of home and the memories it holds are irreplaceable. They are not luxuries, but necessities for dignity and peace in later years. Nursing homes may offer safety and structure, but they cannot offer the feeling of being truly at home. And that is why, like Eleanor, I know that if I were to leave, it would feel as though half of me had been lost. So I will stay where my memories live, because they are not just reminders of the past, they are part of who I am today. The comfort of home is not something I am willing to surrender. It is the anchor that keeps me whole, the sanctuary that gives me peace, and the living proof of a life well lived. One of the hardest truths I have learned about aging is that the way society cares for its elders often comes at the cost of individuality. When we think of nursing homes, many people imagine safety, structure, and professional care. Families are reassured that their loved ones will be fed on time, receive their medications, and have their needs met under one roof. But what is rarely acknowledged is that this very structure, built on efficiency, often strips away the personal freedoms that give life meaning. Nursing homes, by their nature, prioritize routine and order, not individuality. And for someone like me, that feels unbearable. I cannot imagine spending my final years as a number on a chart rather than a person with a story, a soul, and preferences that deserve respect. I have seen this loss of individuality time and time again. Meals are served on strict schedules, often with little regard for what residents want or when they feel hungry. Activities are planned for the group, not the individual. Bedtimes, wake-up calls, and even bathroom breaks can fall under the shadow of institutional order. To some, this might sound practical. After all, caring for dozens or even hundreds of seniors requires systems. But behind those systems are people, each with a lifetime of unique habits, preferences, and values. And when those are ignored for the sake of efficiency, something deeply human is lost. I remember Harold, a man I met through my church. He was 85 when he suffered a fall and spent 6 months in a nursing home while he recovered. Harold had always been particular about his mornings. For years, he started his day the same way, a quiet breakfast of toast and coffee while reading the newspaper before speaking to anyone. That routine was not just a habit. It was his way of grounding himself, of finding peace before facing the day. In the nursing home, breakfast was served at a set time in the dining hall. If he wasn't there, he missed it. There was no newspaper waiting for him, no quiet solitude. Instead, there was chatter, clattering dishes, and a schedule that left no room for his rhythm. He told me later that it made him feel invisible, as though his preferences meant nothing. This is the reality for many seniors in institutional care. While staff may be caring and well-intentioned, they are stretched thin, juggling the needs of many residents. As a result, small but important details get overlooked. A resident who prefers tea over coffee, or who enjoys a walk at dawn, or who needs an extra 5 minutes to get out of bed, these personal touches often fall by the wayside. What emerges instead is a system where residents adapt to the schedule, rather than the schedule adapting to the residents. Over time, this can erode self-worth. When your needs are consistently overridden by efficiency, you begin to feel less like an individual and more like a task on someone else's to-do list. This lack of individuality is not just frustrating, it is dangerous. Studies have shown that seniors who feel dehumanized or ignored are more likely to suffer from depression, anxiety, and even faster physical decline. The human spirit needs recognition and respect to thrive. Without it, even the best medical care cannot prevent the quiet despair that sets in when you are treated as a number. Families often do not see this side. They see their loved one bathed, fed, and kept safe, and they believe that is enough. But I can tell you from conversations with residents that safety without dignity feels like imprisonment. Seniors want more than survival. They want to be seen, heard, and valued. They want their routines respected, their voices acknowledged, and their choices honored. That is something an institution, with all its order and efficiency, struggles to provide. I have visited nursing homes where the hallways were spotless, the staff were polite, and the meals were nutritious. Yet, I could feel the heaviness in the air, a sense of resignation among the residents. When I asked one gentleman how he was doing, he smiled politely and said, "They take good care of me." But when I pressed further, asking if he felt happy, he looked away and whispered, "I feel like I'm disappearing." That answer has stayed with me because it captures exactly what is at stake. It is not that the care was lacking in a physical sense. It was that his humanity was being slowly erased by the very system meant to protect him. For me, the distrust of institutional care comes from knowing that no matter how kind the staff may be, the structure itself cannot bend enough to preserve individuality. The rules and schedules are built for the system, not for the person. And while this may be efficient, it is not human. It is not the kind of life I want for myself or anyone I love. Another story that comes to mind is of a woman named Patricia, who entered a nursing home after her health began to fail. Patricia had always loved knitting in the early hours of the morning. It was her way of beginning the day with calm and creativity. But in the home, lights were out at 10, breakfast was at 8, and there was no quiet corner where she could follow her old habit. Instead, she was ushered into activities planned for the group: bingo, exercise classes, and ND crafts at scheduled times. While those activities had value for some, they stripped her of the freedom to choose her rhythm. Within months, she stopped knitting altogether. Her daughter told me she seemed smaller somehow, less vibrant, as if the spark that made her Patricia had dimmed. It is stories like these that make me certain I will never step into a nursing home. I have lived too long to surrender my individuality to efficiency. I want to wake up when I please, eat what I crave, and keep the routines that comfort me. I want to be seen as a whole person, not a bed number or a chart entry. The distrust I feel toward institutional care is not about rejecting help. It is about rejecting a system that values order over humanity. Even when families visit and bring warmth into the room, it cannot undo the effects of living in a system that constantly reminds you of your lack of control. I have watched friends who once thrived in their own homes slowly lose their confidence and sense of self in nursing homes. They begin to doubt their opinions, stop asking for small preferences, and accept being managed rather than cared for. That quiet surrender is what I fear most. The saddest part is that many of these institutions were created with good intentions, yet the design itself undermines dignity. Efficiency might make sense on paper, but in practice, it reduces life to routines that are the same for everyone. And seniors, who have lived rich, complex lives, deserve more than sameness. They deserve the right to continue being who they are, even in their final years. When I think of Harold and his lost mornings, Patricia and her abandoned knitting, and the countless others who have confided similar feelings, I realize that my decision is clear. I would rather take the risks and challenges of staying at home, relying on family, friends, and community, than give up my individuality to an institution. For me, being alive is not enough. I want to live with dignity, freedom, and recognition of who I am. And that is why my distrust of institutional care runs deep. I have seen what happens when efficiency replaces individuality, when routines replace freedom, and when numbers replace names. It is not the kind of life I want to live, nor the kind of ending I want for my story. At home, I may face hardships, but I will face them as myself, not as a resident defined by someone else's schedule. That, above all, is why I will never choose a nursing home. One of the greatest lessons I have learned in my 84 years is that life is never meant to be lived alone. As we grow older, our bodies may slow down, and our health may change, but our need for love, belonging, and purpose does not fade. It becomes even more important. For many seniors, The true strength that sustains us is not found in institutions or routines imposed by strangers, but in the warmth of family and the embrace of community. That is why, for me, the value of family and community support is one of the most powerful reasons I will never enter a nursing home. While a facility may provide shelter and meals, it cannot provide the deep connections that come from being surrounded by people who know you, love you, and see you as more than a resident. Family has always been the foundation of my life. From the early days of raising children to now, when grandchildren come to visit and fill the house with laughter, those bonds are what make the effort of living worthwhile. A phone call from a child, a visit from a grandchild, or even a shared meal with a sibling has the power to remind me that I matter, that I am part of something bigger than myself. In a nursing home, even with kind staff and scheduled family visits, the rhythm of those interactions changes. They become formal, timed, and filtered through the structure of the institution. At home, by contrast, those moments happen naturally. A daughter might drop by to bring groceries. A grandson might run in to tell you about his baseball game. A neighbor might knock on the door just to check in. These unscheduled acts of love and presence cannot be replicated by any program or service. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 2 below to let me know that you are still here with me. I think of Patricia, a woman I came to know who is now 84. She decided to remain in her home rather than move into a nursing facility, despite her health challenges. Her daughter helps with grocery shopping and doctor's appointments, while a close neighbor tends to the yard and shovels snow in the winter. In return, Patricia bakes bread when she has the energy and shares her stories of the past with those who listen. She once told me that even though her body is weaker than it once was, her life feels richer than ever. Why? Because she is surrounded by people who make her feel seen and valued. Her daughter does not treat her like a patient, but like a mother whose wisdom is still respected. Her neighbors do not see her as a burden, but as a friend who contributes in her way. Patricia's story is proof that when family and community work together, they can create a circle of care stronger than any institution. This sense of belonging is not only emotional, it is practical. Family and neighbors often step in where formal systems fall short. They notice the small details, whether you are eating enough, whether you seem lonely, whether you need help with a task you may be too proud to admit you can't do alone. Unlike staff in a nursing home, who change shifts and may not know each resident personally, family and neighbors have a history with you. They recognize your habits, your moods, and your unspoken needs. That familiarity creates a kind of care that cannot be trained or standardized. It is built on love, loyalty, and shared life. Community, too, plays a vital role. Churches, senior centers, and local programs provide more than services. They provide connection and dignity. I think of my church, where older members are not just attendees, but pillars of wisdom. Each Sunday, I see seniors volunteering to greet newcomers, teaching younger generations, or sharing meals in fellowship halls. These are not roles given out of pity, they are roles of honor. They remind us that even in later years, we still have something to give. That sense of contribution is vital. Nursing homes, with their rigid schedules, often reduce seniors to passive recipients of care. In the community, we remain active participants in life. Senior centers, too, provide opportunities to connect. I have attended gatherings where people in their 70s, 80s, and even 90s laugh together over bingo, dance to old songs, or share advice about gardening or cooking. These moments may seem small, but they sustain the spirit. They affirm that aging does not mean isolation, but can instead be a time of deep connection. And local programs, Meals on Wheels, exercise groups, neighborhood watch committees, allow older adults to stay engaged and supported. Each of these threads weaves together into a fabric of belonging that keeps us strong. I remember a man named Walter, who was widowed at 79. He feared loneliness more than anything else. But rather than entering a nursing home, he became involved in his local senior center. He joined a weekly walking group, volunteered to read to children at the library, and attended potlucks at his church. He often said those connections gave him more strength than any medication. "I feel alive because I'm needed," he told me once. His words echo the truth many of us know in our hearts. The need to belong, to be useful, and to be loved is as essential as food and shelter. Some might argue that family and community cannot always provide the same level of physical care as a nursing home. And that may be true in certain cases. But what they do provide is something even more important. The reminder that we are not forgotten, not invisible, not reduced to a checklist. That sense of being valued can strengthen health, reducing depression, improving recovery, and motivating seniors to take better care of themselves. When we feel loved and connected, we fight harder to stay well. Of course, family support is not always easy. Adult children may live far away, neighbors may be busy, and communities may not always be strong. But even imperfect networks of care can create more joy and dignity than an institution can provide. It does not take grand gestures. Sometimes it is as simple as a phone call, a shared cup of tea, or a helping hand with groceries. These small acts accumulate into a sense of being held by others, of knowing you are part of a web of life that still values you. For me, leaning on family and community is not a burden. It is the natural way of life. For generations, humanity survived by relying on one another. Parents caring for children, children caring for parents, neighbors looking out for each other. It is only in recent decades that we began to believe institutions could replace that. But no building, no matter how modern or well-staffed, can replace the warmth of a grandchild's hug, the familiarity of a daughter's voice, or the neighborly kindness of someone shoveling your sidewalk. Those moments remind you that you belong, that you are loved, and that you still have a role in the world. I have no desire to hand over my independence to strangers when I know that the bonds of family and community can sustain me far more deeply. I do not fear growing older as long as I know I am surrounded by people who care. That is why the value of family and community support will always outweigh the appeal of institutional care. It is not about rejecting help. It is about choosing the kind of help that preserves dignity, fosters belonging, and keeps the human heart alive. When I think of Patricia baking bread for her neighbors, or Walter finding new life in his community, I see examples of how aging can be rich with connection. These stories remind me that even as the body weakens, the soul grows stronger when it is nurtured by love and fellowship. Nursing homes may provide care, but they cannot provide family. They may offer safety, but they cannot offer community. Only the bonds we build with one another can do that. So I will continue to cherish the presence of my family and the support of my community. Because in the end, it is not walls or schedules that keep us alive, it is relationships. And that is why, for me, the value of family and community support stands as one of the most important reasons I will never choose to enter a nursing home. As the years pass, I have come to believe more strongly than ever that the way we care for ourselves each day is the truest form of independence. It is easy to think of aging as something that simply happens to us, a slow decline over which we have little control. But I have learned that the choices we make, what we eat, how we move, how we spend our time, play an enormous role in how fully we can continue to live. This is why my commitment to self-care and lifestyle is one of the most important reasons I will never choose to live in a nursing home. I do not see self-care as a chore or a duty. I see it as the foundation of dignity, the way I protect not only my body but also my identity. Each morning, I wake with a routine that grounds me. I stretch before getting out of bed, easing the stiffness from my joints. I prepare a simple but nourishing breakfast, often oatmeal with fruit, because I know the day begins better when the body is fueled well. I take a short walk outside, breathing in the air and listening to the world awaken. These habits may seem ordinary, even unremarkable, but to me, they are the pillars that sustain my independence. Without them, I would feel myself slipping into dependence on others, inch by inch. With them, I remain in control of my rhythm, my own life. I think of James, a man I greatly admire. At 82, he has arthritis and occasional heart troubles, yet he makes it a point to walk every day. Rain or shine, he laces up his shoes and sets out, even if only for a short stroll around the block. He also insists on preparing his meals, refusing to give in to the convenience of pre-packaged food. He told me once, "Every time I cook my dinner, I remind myself that I'm still capable." His determination has allowed him to stay in the home he built with his late wife, surrounded by familiar things, instead of being moved into a facility. James proves that self-care is not about perfection, it is about consistency. His small daily acts form a shield against dependence, strengthening not only his body but also his spirit. For me, this is the essence of aging well. Self-care is not vanity. It is not selfishness. It is the recognition that our bodies and minds respond to how we treat them. When I eat balanced meals, my energy lasts longer. When I walk, even for just 15 minutes, my joints remain more flexible. When I read, garden, or write letters, my mind stays sharper, and I feel connected to life. These are not dramatic measures. They are small, steady choices. Yet they are powerful because they keep me in charge of my own story. In nursing homes, much of this autonomy is lost. Meals are scheduled, activities are predetermined, and residents are often encouraged to follow routines that prioritize efficiency over personal preference. While the intent may be good, the effect is that self-care becomes something managed by others rather than chosen by oneself. That, to me, is the opposite of dignity. I do not want to be fed at a certain time simply because it is convenient for staff. I want to choose when and what I eat. I do not want to exercise because it is on the schedule. I want to move because I have decided that my body still deserves strength. There is also the matter of identity. Who we are is reflected in the way we live day to day. A person who wakes early to read the newspaper, who tends to a garden, who cooks family recipes passed down for generations, these routines define them. When such routines are taken away, even gently, it feels like erasing parts of the self. That is why self-care is about more than health. It is about holding on to who we are. I want my days, however many remain, to reflect me. Not a system, not a schedule, not a checklist. I remember visiting a woman named Eleanor who lived well into her 90s. She told me her secret was not luck, but discipline. She woke every morning at the same time, tended to her small flower garden, and ate simple, home-cooked meals. She admitted her body had slowed, but she still felt alive because her days were her own. Nursing homes, she said, could not give her that. They could provide safety, but not the satisfaction of watering flowers she had planted herself. That satisfaction, she believed, was what kept her strong. It strikes me that self-care is often underestimated by society. Doctors prescribe medications, families arrange for caretakers, but few recognize the power of the choices we make for ourselves. Seniors are often told, "Don't strain yourself, let someone else handle it." While this advice may come from love, it can be dangerous. When we stop doing for ourselves, even small things, we begin to lose confidence. And when confidence fades, dependence grows. It is a quiet, subtle slide that can end in losing far more than convenience. It can end in losing identity. I am determined to resist that slide. Of course, I cannot control everything. Illness and frailty come with age, whether we invite them or not. But what I can control is how I respond. I can choose to eat food that nourishes, to keep my body moving, to use my mind, and to tend to the spaces that bring me peace. Each of these choices is a declaration. I am still here. I am still myself. Self-care also gives me purpose. When I rise and cook a meal, when I fold laundry, when I plant new flowers in the spring, I feel useful. These tasks may seem small, but they connect me to life. In a nursing home, where tasks are done for you, that sense of usefulness often fades. Residents are cared for, but they are rarely invited to contribute in meaningful ways. I would rather struggle through cooking a meal than be handed a plate without effort. I would rather take 20 minutes to fold laundry slowly than have it returned neatly without my touch. These acts remind me that I still play an active role in my own life. There is also joy in self-care. I take pleasure in making a meal taste just right, in pulling weeds from the garden, in finishing a book I've been working through. These joys may be simple, but they are real. They remind me that life, even in later years, is still worth savoring. To hand over those joys to an institution would feel like surrendering too soon. I think again of James, walking each day despite his arthritis. His determination is not just about physical health. It is about telling himself and the world that he is still capable. That message matters. Every act of self-care is a quiet declaration of independence. It is a way of saying, I may be aging, but I am not done. I still have choices, and I will live them fully. This commitment to self-care is not only personal, it is generational. When younger people see their elders maintaining routines, they learn that aging is not simply decline, but adaptation. They see that life can still be rich with meaning if we hold on to the power of choice. That is the legacy I want to leave. Not one of surrender, but one of resilience. So when people ask me why I will never go into a nursing home, I tell them this. Because I am committed to living my life on my terms. I am committed to caring for myself as long as I am able, to preserving the routines that make me who I am, to holding on to dignity through the choices I make each day. Nursing homes may offer convenience, but they cannot offer the same sense of identity that comes from self-reliance. At 84, I know I cannot control the future. But today, I can walk. Today, I can cook. Today, I can tend to my space, read my books, and write my letters. And as long as I can do those things, I will not surrender them. Self-care is my freedom, my dignity, and my identity. It is the strongest shield I have against dependence. And it is why I will always choose to remain at home, caring for myself, until the very end. As I look back on everything I've shared, the 5 reasons stand clear before me. Privacy is worth protecting because it is the very heart of dignity. The comfort of home and the memories it holds cannot be traded for sterile walls. Trust is too precious to hand over to institutions that often prioritize efficiency over individuality. Family and community create a circle of love and belonging that no nursing home can replicate. And finally, the daily commitment to self-care, through food, movement, and habits, keeps us grounded in who we are. These reasons are not born from fear. They rise from strength, from the unshakable desire to live with purpose, independence, and identity until the very end. Aging is not about surrendering. It is about choosing. Every choice we make either preserves or diminishes our sense of self. I choose to preserve mine, and I hope my story inspires you to reflect on your path. Perhaps you see yourself in these reasons, or perhaps you have others of your own. Either way, your voice matters. So I invite you now, share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me which reason spoke to you most, or share a story of your own family. If this message touched you, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with others who may need encouragement. Together, we can spread the reminder that growing older is not the end of dignity but a chance to protect it fiercely, and to live every day with meaning.